Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1310A and today's date is June 19th, 2017, and the title of the episode is 3 Indicators Put the U.S. on Track for an Economic Disaster. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Well, it looks like the first day of the official Brexit talks is over. And according to statements, it appears that it's been a useful session, even though the real work has only just begun. And what's very interesting about all this is that we saw a couple events occur during the Brexit talks, and we'll be talking about this a little bit later in the next report. But we can see right now that the central banking system, the deep state, they don't want a Brexit to happen. They're trying, if you notice, a lot of these events are continually happening in the UK. It's very coincidental it's happening during the Brexit period. And of course, there's other agendas associated with this, but we can see how this is being used to distract, to get people to say maybe we shouldn't do this right now, maybe we should stick together. And we can see right now they realize that they can't let any country remove themselves from their system. Every single country needs to be with them because in the end, what they want to do is they want to restart this system, bring us down another 40 years. And if we give them another 40 years, they will create that one world government. They will create a system with a one world currency where they will control the people. They'll control the people monetarily. They will control the people by getting rid of their rights. And we can see this has been their agenda all along. Now, here in the United States, going back to the Obama administration, we saw that the Fed, they did everything in its power to surge all asset prices. I mean, stocks, bonds, real estate, collectibles, you name it. They were pushing the bubble bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, under Trump, it looks like they're doing the exact opposite. Now, as Bubble 2.0 was forming, an unorthodox demand increased, pushing house prices beyond the reach of most end users. Shelter buyers in any given region, volume remained relatively weak. Sales volume has never been a feature of the housing bubble 2.0. In fact, after 7 years of ZIRP, $10 trillion in new government debt and $5 trillion in Fed money printing, builder new home sales are sitting at around 60% of the volume of the past bubble. Resales are about 20% lower, and we need to remember something very important. Resales rose more because that's where the unorthodox demand lives. The problem has always been about true fundamental demand, which is a key feature missing from this fake housing recovery. This housing bubble always needs low mortgage rates. And if this disappears, guess what happens? This fake housing bubble also disappears. And this is what we see happening right now. Because as we know, this housing bubble, when it pops, and as the mortgages rate continually increases, it pushes people out of the market. People can't afford these homes. People start lowering their housing prices, and people start to lose their equity in the homes. When people start to do this, people say to themselves, well, wait a minute, is the economy doing as well as I thought? Because remember, when housing prices are going up, for some reason, people in their minds, they think the economy is doing very well. They feel very comfortable. On paper, I just made another $50,000 in my house, even though it's on paper only. And when it starts coming down, people get nervous. People get afraid. And of course, when the housing prices are going up, people take out equity loans to pay for their credit cards, to add on to their homes or buy a new car and things like that. And we could see that this is going to end, and it's already started. So the Fed is doing everything completely opposite of what they did during the last 8 years with Obama. Because what is happening right now, we're on the back end where they're saying, okay, we brought it up to a certain level. Now we're bringing it down. This is why we're raising interest rates. We don't care what the economy's doing. We know all the numbers are completely fake because we're the Fed. We know what we've been doing. We know we've been pumping up the stock market. We know we pumped up the housing market. We know retail's failing because we've never let the currency hit the market. We know that individuals are not getting jobs. We know it's all fake, so it really doesn't matter. And right now, this is what is happening. So are the central banks getting ready to crash the system? And if you look, yes, they are. Think about it. The GDP continually declines. I mean, we started at 3 or 4.0, whatever it was. It doesn't really make any difference because it's completely fake. The New York Fed, well, they're down to 1.9. And we can see the Atlanta Fed is continually dropping. And if you look at the trend, it is continually declining over and over and over. It's not trending up, it's always trending down. Now, if you look at the City Surprise Index, it has collapsed to levels not seen since 2011. This is the second indicator. And we know that the tax revenue coming into the federal government, the tax revenue coming into the state governments, they have been declining all along. So the last time this City Surprise Index were at these levels, the Fed was about to launch Operation Twist to provide additional liquidity to the markets. Today, the Fed is about to start to withdraw the liquidity from the markets. And not a little. $10 billion per month this quarter and $20 billion per month in the fourth quarter of 2017. They're doing the exact opposite of what they did before. The Fed basically is taking away the punch bowl from the markets. Now, if we take this a step further, we know that loan creation has stalled and falling. And we see that the global central banks, they're going to begin to withdraw stimulus from their system. The global credit is already decelerating at a pace not seen since the Great Crisis. So when we look at the global credit impulse, it has dropped dramatically. And we're on par to where we were between 2008 and 2009, which means that this system is crashing. And it's coming down very, very quickly. We can see from all the evidence, from retail to GDP to housing, from people losing their jobs, from the credit impulse, from loan creation, from corporate defaults, from the corporate debt bomb, from the stock market where people aren't even investing in the market anymore. It's completely controlled by the central banks. They're buying all the tech stocks, trying to pump this system up. And when we look at all this, we can see we've been kept in this gigantic illusion for the last 8 years. I mean, we've been in illusion for much, much longer, but the great illusion has been the last 8 to 9 years. And this great illusion is coming to an end. From everything that we've been looking at, we are already in a recession. The government's not going to mention it. The Fed is definitely not going to mention it. The only time they're going to mention this is maybe 6 to 8 months later when we're in the collapse scenario. They will let us know when the recession actually started. And you will be surprised when it started. Most likely when we've been saying it started. And I think it started back in 2016. And we've been in this recession, and the recession has just been getting worse all this time. Now, the Fed is raising rates. They're accelerating the process. And we can see by looking at all these different indicators, things are rapidly falling apart. And there is no stopping it. They want the system to come down. They're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to place blame in another area. Think about what they wanted to do all along. They wanted to create, along with the deep state, a one world type of government. This is why they were pushing TPP. This is why they've been trying to push global warming. They've been using all of this to create this illusion that they will control the world. And they wanted court systems to sit above governments. They wanted to bring each country down to a certain level to make them all even. This was all part of their plan. And if they remain in control, remember, they're in this for the long haul. They're not doing this to say, okay, next week we'll have complete control. Think about how long they've been trying to create this. If they can continue on with this, and they can keep the narrative, and they can control the system, they will have another 40 years on this fiat system. And if they do keep control, they will bring this entire world under a one world system, because that's been their plan all along. And we can see they don't care how long it takes, as long as they reach the goal. Think about what they've been doing out in all different countries. Even when their objective maybe gets sidetracked, they always stick to their goal and they always come back to it. They don't care how long it takes, because they pass it down from generation to generation to generation. And the central banking system has been here for quite a while. They have control of quite a bit. They've been gaining control over a lot of these countries where they've been buying a lot of their assets. They've been putting them further and further into debt. And we can see right now that we cannot allow them to control the next collapse where they can control the narrative. We need to call them out on it. We need to say we don't need a central bank. And we know that the Trump administration, they've been working towards this. And of course, they're trying to stop him. They don't want this to happen. One thing for sure is we know that this system is going to come down one way or another. It really doesn't make a difference, because it's coming down, because we've reached the end point of this system. Just like we were starting out in the 70s and we saw hyperinflation. Actually, we did see quite a bit of inflation back then, where you saw housing prices like double, incomes like double. We saw interest rates of 17, 18%. As the dollar devalued. Now, everyone thought that was great. Yes, in the beginning of the system, it seems incredibly fantastic. Here we are at the end of the system. Everything is completely opposite. Wages keep declining. They can't allow interest rates to go up. It won't work. The dollar is continually devaluing. They're holding back the inflation because they know this would completely crash the system. But they want to control what is happening. This is why all the stimulus that they created never went into the hands of the people, because more dollars in the hands of the people, that would cause inflation. They knew this. This is why we've never really saw the inflation we were talking about. Yes, we saw inflation in food and other places, but the major inflation we never saw, because they pushed it into certain areas, the stock market, into the housing, offshore. This is what they've done all along. Now we're coming to an end. The system is coming to an end. And we're seeing everything that they did in the beginning, we're seeing the opposite happen right now. And they're going to try to maintain the control until the very end. But what you need to do is you need to get ready and prepared for what is coming, because it's coming no matter what. You can see it. There's signs all over the place. And eventually what's going to happen is the entire system is going to collapse. Just like eventually when those individuals looking at the subprime securities, they knew back in 2006, they thought it was going to happen in 2007. Then they thought maybe midway through 2007 it was going to happen. Maybe in the beginning of 2008 it was going to happen. But eventually what happened? It did happen. The system came down, and that was it. And they were proven right. Yes, they made a lot of money off the system at that time, and those people that were all laughing at them, they lost pretty much everything they had. Well, we've been looking at it, and we know for a fact that everything is pointing to this system coming down. And this is why you need to be ready and prepared for when it does. We don't have a crystal ball to say, this is exactly when it's going to happen. This is why we've been tracking it. We don't want this to be a surprise to anyone. We want to look back in time and say, no, we know it's been happening. It's been deteriorating all along. We know that retail is just going to get worse. We know that housing is just going to get worse. We know eventually the Fed is going to try to bring down the system. And this is exactly what's been happening until the system comes down. And Even when the corporate media and the rest come out and say, oh, it was Trump's fault or it was this person's fault, we can say, no, we've been following this. You are lying. You can fact check all you want. We have the facts. They don't. So get prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.